Hello everyone and welcome to the Hockey Up. I'm Brennan and today we're doing more of the World Junior 2021 IIHF Championship previews. So today we're looking at Group B. We did do Group A yesterday. I do think that Group B is the stronger division overall, but we are going to get into previewing the teams, looking at some interesting players, the best players, and a question that I have for each team. Now, starting off with Austria, there really isn't a lot to say about Austria. Their best player, their most interesting player, is definitely Marco Rossi. Rossi is a very highly touted prospect, going 9th overall to the Minnesota Wild. I do think that Rossi has the makings of being a star centerman. That being said, I don't know how well he's going to be able to do in this tournament since he basically has no supporting cast. And that would kind of be my question as well. Will Rossi be able to have a good tournament despite the fact that he's kind of Austria's only real notable or good player? I do think that Rossi is tremendously talented, and he's easily going to have the most points for Austria and be their best and most notable player. But that being said, I don't have a lot of expectations for Austria, and I don't think that most people do either. But moving into the Czech Republic, now the Czech Republic has been a very respectable hockey country for the past couple of years. They have been able to get some gold medals in the past couple decades and produced some really good players in the NHL, obviously the most famous one of all time being Jaromír Jágr. But this Czech team doesn't exactly have a lot of star power, but there is a few decent players. In my opinion, their best player is Montreal Canadiens second-round pick Jan Mysak. Mysak oozes offensive potential and does project as a top six forward. Mysak is definitely probably their best player on paper and will likely end up leading the team in scoring. As a player to watch, though, I have Michael Tepley. Tepley is an interesting prospect. He does have a little bit of potential, and if he and maybe Mysak can form a little bit of chemistry, that could be a good duo. The question I have for the Czech Republic is actually, maybe could they end up being a bit of a dark horse? I know that their roster doesn't exactly scream contender on paper, but the Czech Republic just always turns out to have a good, respectable team, and they always end up playing well. So I do think that they could potentially be a little bit of a dark horse threat, and could even end up pulling off an upset victory in the round robin against a team like the US or Sweden. Only time's going to tell, but I do think that the Czech Republic should end up being a decent team. But moving into one of the powerhouses of the tournament, I have Sweden. Now, Sweden is always a consistent threat. They recently just had a gold medal. Well, not gold medal. Well, they were in the gold medal game. They ended up taking home silver, but they're always a threat for the gold medal, and they normally end up medaling, whether it be bronze, silver, or gold. And if you look at the roster this year, I think, they're going to be a dangerous team and probably is going to end up getting a medal. Their best players are the two, big Swedes from this past draft, and Lucas Raymond and Alexander Holtz. Both these guys are just really great wingers that should end up being star wingers at the NHL level. Lucas Raymond is a very comparable player to Mitch Marner, and Alexander Holtz was touted as probably the best goal scorer from the 2020 draft. So those guys as a duo should absolutely rack up points, but also having Victor Soderstrom on the blue line, a draft pick of the Arizona Coyotes, should really help as well. Those three guys as a core, it's kind of hard to argue with, as they might be one of the best cores in this World Junior Championship. All three of those guys could end up being stars at the NHL level. As far as players to watch go, I would have their goaltender Jesper Wallstedt and Philip Broberg. Now, Wallstedt is an upcoming prospect for the 2021 NHL entry draft, and he could end up being actually a first-round pick and could end up being an elite goaltender. There is a lot of hype around Wallstedt, and it's easy to see why. He's put up really good numbers, and if he has a very impressive World Junior Championship, that is only going to raise his stock. Sweden could end up just going as far as Wallstedt does, so he has to be really good for Sweden. But Philip Broberg is an interesting one as well. He is going to get a lot of media attention since he is a prospect of the Edmonton Oilers, being a Canadian team and everything. But I do think that Broberg is a very good defensive prospect. I don't know if he was worth the 7th overall pick at the time, but there's no way to tell since he hasn't played in the NHL yet, and if he has an amazing tournament, then everybody's going to be calling Edmonton geniuses. So those two guys could end up being really key pieces for Sweden. But the question I have for Sweden is whether or not they'll be able to recover from their COVID losses. Now, they have lost a few players, due to COVID, and they're not going to be able to play in the tournament, such as a potential star in William Uckland. That is a really big loss for them, and it really hurts their center depth. But they also lost their head coach as well. So Sweden is really hurting due to COVID, and it's kind of a shame since they could arguably be the favorite if it's not for these COVID losses. But I still think that they have a very good team and are definitely a threat for the gold medal. But now moving on to Team Russia. Team Russia is always one of the most feared and dangerous teams in this tournament. They always play a heavy style of hockey due to part in their coach. But they're always a consistent threat and easily one of the favorites going into this tournament. The best players are Vasily Podkolzin, the 10th overall pick of the Vancouver Canucks, and Yaroslav Askarov, the goaltender recently drafted by the Nashville Predators. Podkolzin has the potential to be a star winger in the NHL, and this tournament should only boost his stock. I do expect him to be Russia's best player and could end up being one of the best forwards in the entire tournament. Yaroslav Askarov is probably the most highly touted goaltender at this tournament, so it would be little of a surprise to me if he was able to take home the Goaltender of the Tournament award. But an interesting player I have for Russia would be Rodin Amirov. Now, Rodin Amirov was kind of a bit of a surprise pick to some Maple Leafs fans, but I do think that people are starting to see, his true potential, and that he could end up being a very good top six winger at the NHL level. If he's able to put together a really good World Junior tournament, the hype for him is going to be through the roof since he plays in the Toronto market, and he could get overhyped a little bit, but I definitely expect him to have a good tournament and probably be one of Russia's more prominent players. Now, the question I have for Russia is whether or not they're going to be able to change the narrative of not being able to secure themselves a gold medal for the last couple of years. Despite having one of the best rosters year after year and making it to the gold medal game, they either take home silver or bronze, and they just can't seem to, break that kind of narrative and take home a gold medal. This team could definitely be the team that does it. They do have a very good team in all aspects, forward, goaltending. They're definitely a dangerous team, and I expect them to be one of the biggest threats to the other teams like Canada and the US and Sweden. But moving on to the United States. Now, the United States, to me, are probably the second favorite behind Canada in this entire tournament. Their overall roster is absolutely loaded. When you look at their best players, you can tell why. Cole Caulfield, Alex Turcotte, and Trevor Zegras are three of the best prospects in the NHL and all ooze elite offensive potential. Turcotte and Zegras project as top six, arguably top-line centermen, and Caulfield projects as a top-line goal-scoring winger. So those guys should make for an absolutely deadly trio, and in my opinion, the U.S. probably has one of, if not the most deadly forward cores in the entire tournament. It's kind of hard to argue with Canada because every single one of their forwards is a first-round pick, but I do think that the level of high-end talent on the U.S. roster is a bit above Canada, whereas Canada has more depth in their overall lineup, but those three guys as high-end talent, I think is probably the best high-end talent in the entire tournament. A player to watch, I have Jake Sanderson. Now, Sanderson was a recent 5th overall pick of the Ottawa Senators, and Sanderson can really boost his stock here if he has a really good tournament. He kind of does project as the U.S.'s top pairing defender, and by all means should be an absolute workhorse for them on the blue line. It's kind of time to see why Ottawa decided to pick him over Drysdale, and I do expect a really big tournament from Jake Sanderson. Now, the question I have for the U.S. is whether or not they're going to be able to bounce back. Now, last year, once again, they were one of the favorites with guys, like Turcotte and Zegras and Caulfield, but they didn't end up getting a medal, which was kind of surprising since going into that year, I kind of thought that they were the favorite when you looked at their roster on paper. But this year, I think, all these guys are a year older, they got more experience, they've played in this tournament before, and I do expect the U.S. to be a very big threat. In all honesty, I think probably Canada-U.S. will end up being the gold medal final game, and I could very well see the U.S. taking home gold. I kind of got a feeling that the U.S. could end up being the champions this year. Obviously, being from Canada, I'm hoping that it's Team Canada. Our roster is loaded as well, but you look at the high-end star power of the U.S., it's simply crazy. And the U.S. is always a very consistently good team, and the fact that they haven't won a gold medal since 2016, I believe it was, or maybe 2017, I feel like they're kind of due, especially when you look at this roster. But that does it for today's video. I'm very excited for these World Junior Championships. They're just around the corner, and I personally can't wait to get them started. It's a very exciting time of year, and all eyes are going to be on this tournament since the NHL isn't playing right now. So it's going to put a lot of pressure on these guys, but I think it's going to make for great hockey. But either way, I appreciate you guys watching till the end of the video. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.